What's the funniest intrusive thought you've ever had? The Lego figures must be so freaked out that their surroundings and themselves are of the same material. Is the house made of me, or am I made of the house? He screams for he does not know. He cannot scream, for he has no mouth. Thank you for the reminder of this nightmare. A Lego man sits in a Lego house. Is the house made of flesh? Or is he made of house? He screams internally for he does not know. What has been blown way out of proportion? Balloons. Thank you for this. Okay, so this all happened over the course of 2 or 3 weeks back in my 8th grade year. I had been homeschooled from my 3rd grade year to my 8th grade year. This didn't mean that I didn't know and play with all my friends in the neighborhood. This being said, I knew everyone in town who might pull some kind of prank, and I was close enough with them that I knew when they were lying. One night in the fall, September I think, I woke up in my bed and rolled over just in time to see my alarm clock turn from 2:59 to 3. I didn't think anything of it and got out of bed to go to the bathroom. On the way I stubbed my toe and tripped over a weights bar on the floor. This is important because after everything happened this showed me I wasn't dreaming because I was in physical pain. So I went into the bathroom and did my business and went into my kitchen to get a drink. In my kitchen I have a bird window, the kind that is like a two-way mirror. During the day you can see out and the outside can't see in and vice versa at night. I went into my kitchen to get a drink, so I opened my fridge and got out a water bottle and started to drink it. At about this time some quiet taps started coming from the bird window. This is normal during the day because birds will peck at their reflections. But at night there shouldn't be birds at the window. I shrugged it off and kept drinking. I turned my back and started walking back to my room when a huge bang on the side of the house happened. I was absolutely terrified at this point but decided to grow some balls and turn around. The banging and tapping stopped. So after standing there staring for a while I turned around again and started heading off for bed. That's when whoever or whatever this thing was got really pissed off. The banging got so loud I thought it would wake my whole family up. I was annoyed at this point more than scared because I wanted to sleep. So I turned around and made an angry gesture towards the window. It got quiet for a second. Then all of a sudden the back door handle started to jiggle violently. My first thought was it's locked, nothing can get in, so I turned around and went to bed. Right as I was about to doze off in my bed I heard 3 taps on my window. There is more to my story, I just didn't want to post it all at once. Let me know if you want to hear the rest. This was all done on mobile, so sorry for all the mistakes.
Have you ever been in love? Like honestly and truly in love? Do you know the ache of wanting to hold them and kiss them but never being able to? It makes it even worse when they're so painfully close but so far away. You see, I've lived in the same apartment since I was 7 years old. Neither of my parents really wanted me, and when they got a divorce my mom refused to take custody of me. I can't really blame her. She gave birth to me when she was only 13, so she never before had a chance to be young. I can however blame her for leaving me with a monster. Horror movies never scared me. I never feared the boogeyman or Pennywise the dancing clown. I knew none of those monsters were real because I lived with a real one. To all his co-workers he was charming, intelligent, and an absolute joy to be around. My father never drank unless he was offered something while out with friends. He didn't do drugs either. Didn't need any of that to fuel his rage and hate for me and everyone else he interacted with. Dad never yelled at me. He didn't need to raise his voice to make me afraid. He did beat me. Controlled when and where I was allowed to eat, sleep, play, even use the bathroom. There was a huge list of rules for the house. One of the biggest ones was if he had company over I was to stay in my room and not make a single sound or come out until he called for me. When he called me I was to help him clean up. Do you know how hard it is to get blood and vomit out of your favorite dress? The only thing that kept me sane was the boy that lived in my vents. Well, he says that's not where he lives, but I can only ever talk to him through them. Anytime I was scared or sad or hurting or just lonely, he'd be there to talk to me and comfort me. I never told Dad about the boy in the vents. I was afraid if I told him that Dad would take him away from me. He always took away the things that made me happy. The boy never told me his name, says he doesn't have one. I started calling him V and he seemed to like that. V and I would talk for hours on end. We'd laugh and cry and play pretend. V was the only friend I'd ever had. He didn't like Dad. Didn't like the way he treated me. Over the years V and I became very close and things started to change. Sometimes I'd come home from school to find presents like beautiful necklaces or CDs I'd talked about wanting. Sometimes he'd fix things of mine that were broken. Our talks were more sporadic though as Dad became more and more attached to me, demanding I sleep in the bed with him. He would do things to me. Awful things. Honestly, I preferred him just beating me. I didn't want him to touch me. Didn't want to feel his rough and calloused hands scrape across my skin. Didn't like the way he clumsily tore at my clothes or the smell of mint and cigars on his breath. No shower could make me feel clean. No matter how hard I scrubbed or how scalding hot the water was. I would confide in V. Sobbing uncontrollably. I swear I could feel the walls shake with his anger. When I was 16 he met a rather untimely death. I had fallen asleep at a girl's house who I was doing a project with. It was after 6 so all the buses had stopped which meant I needed to walk home. It took me 2 hours to get back to my apartment and when I did there were police vehicles and ambulances surrounding the building. I was curious and confused. As I walked up the crowd that had begun surrounding the building turned to me. Some of them whispered and pointed in my direction. I didn't know what was happening. As I got closer an officer tapped me on the shoulder. "Are you Angelica Harding?" I raised my brow but responded quickly. "Yes, why?" He nodded at me, spoke something into the walkie-talkie on his vest, then turned back to me. "Would you please come with me?" It looked like he was trying to keep a cool and calm expression but there was a look of sympathy and pity in his eyes. I was put in a police vehicle and taken down to the station. They sat me in a room by myself for a while. One person at one point came in and offered me food or a hot chocolate but I declined it. I needed to know where my dad was before he got really mad at me. After an hour and a half an officer came in with my aunt who I hadn't seen since I was 10. She rushed to me and wrapped me in her arms. "Oh my sweet angel. I'm so sorry this happened." I became even more confused though I had an idea of what happened. The officer, my aunt, and I sat down together in that room. I was told a call was put in when one of my neighbors heard some loud screaming and banging come from my apartment. Funny, no one said anything when I screamed or when the company my dad had over would scream. When the police came in it appeared everything was fine until they got to my father's bedroom. Blood covered the room and his dismembered body parts were haphazardly strewn about except for his head which hung spinning around the room from the ceiling fan. The police of course didn't tell me that. V did. V always tells me the truth. I was still a minor at the time so if someone from my family didn't take me in I would be put in the foster care system and sent somewhere else. That thought terrified me more than anything my dad had ever done. That's when my aunt said she'd be adopting me. That she'd love me and take good care of me. The papers were signed and I begged and pleaded with my aunt not to make me move. I just wanted to go home. Well, as it turns out that worked out perfectly fine. My aunt never actually wanted kids but she didn't want me to be put through the foster care system either. It was 3 months before I was allowed to go back to my apartment which was signed over in my aunt's name. The police couldn't find any evidence of a break-in, no DNA, and no person who would have wanted my father dead. I had an alibi so after some investigation I was out of the question. The case ran cold and I was allowed to go back home. I lived on my own with V and my aunt paid all the bills from the comfort of her home in California. I was sent a monthly allowance on top of that for $300 for food and whatever else I needed but I still got a job to work after school. I would say V and I have become romantically involved. At least as romantically involved as you can with someone you're never allowed to see or touch. Sometimes at night he climbs into my bed and just holds me. I'm not allowed to look at him or touch him though otherwise he says he'll have to leave forever. V protects me. I still have to clean out blood and vomit from my clothes now but not out of fear this time. I mean everyone has to eat right? Even V. His favorite food is truck stop grapes. I've asked him before if he'd ever eat me and he just says I'm so sweet all his teeth would rot out. I really wish I could see V. Especially now. Something started to feel off a few weeks ago and my period is really late. I can feel something in my stomach growing. I haven't told him yet,